great friend of mine, and she was like, at 911, we're working together, we should go to corrections. And I'm like, girl, who should go there? Not me. She's like, yeah, we should apply. It's going to be a lot of money. You know, everything's going to work out. Like, we just need to make that move. I'm like, you know what? I'll apply with you, but trust me, if they call me, I'm not going. I had that attitude basically the whole entire process, even through the academy. So we applied, we passed all the requirements, we did the background checks, everything that was possible that needed to be done, we did it. And then we started our jobs. We ended up going to different jails, but we still stayed in contact because we were very close since young. My first day in jail, I worked at EMTC, which is known as Beverly Hills and everywhere else is Compton, no offense. My first jail that I was assigned to was the 6th building. If you know, you know. But it's formerly known as Eric M. Taylor Center. I spent about 3.5 years in that building until it closed down. My first day in jail wasn't as bad as you thought or would think. Everybody was pretty nice. Like, hey, how you doing? How is everything? And I'm like, is this jail the crazy notorious jail that they've been talking about all over the news? This place is pretty easy. For the most part, I had an amazing career. Thank God. I really wasn't involved in anything until July 4th, 2019. So July 4th, 2019 was one of my very first gang fights. Yes, that's right, gang fights. I'm sure you've heard all different types of things. If you know, you know, and if you don't, I'm not going to say too much, but I'm going to say enough. So basically, I'm in my normal house, which is where I'm assigned to every day. We call it steadies. That means you go there every day, and it's your house, and you own it. Or do you? So this day in particular, there was someone they knew that came to the house. He wasn't involved in the gang that was of that house. Although they're not supposed to be assigned together, if you know, you know. So this day he comes in, I make sure that everything's good, he gets everything that he's supposed to have, and he gets his bed. By the morning time, it was all over. They ended up in a crazy war, canes, fighting, blood, and I got pushed. That's when I felt like I'm in jail for real. After that, everything changed. They ended up closing our jail, and I ended up going to one of the worst jails on the island, known as GRVC. Everything that I'm talking about today doesn't apply to other people. I'm telling my story. I have a lot of family and friends that still work there, and they're staying in the fight, but my story just didn't end as theirs may. Anything that I am talking about throughout this entire series does not show the experience of others. I'm just telling my story, how the department treated me, and what I learned from it, and how I moved on. So there was a lot of changes in the department, and changing from one jail to another seems like nothing. You're moving from another office building to another one. It's way different when it's jail. Moving from a place like EMTC where really not too much goes on because we had more control than other places, it was a huge change. Going from one of the best jails to one of the worst, no one could tell you anything about it. You just had to be there. Going to GRVC, I kind of mentally prepared myself like this is one of the worst jails, but they're not going to run me out. Like, I'm up in there. Not really, but I'm there. And everything was completely different. I did a lot of overtime in EMTC, but overtime in GRVC is a whole nother ball game. You're dealing with people bothering you because you're from EMTC. They think that they know you. They think that you're soft. They have so many ideas of you, and you kind of like have to prove yourself in certain situations just to be accepted. Although I always followed the rules the best way I could, didn't stop me from getting into things, whether it was with supervisors, co-workers. People just have it out for you because you're from EMTC. There's a lot of people that can attest to that. Some may not. It is what it is. I have to tell my side. Being in GRVC, I dealt with so many fights, wars, just non-compliance. They just didn't listen. And if you have a problem, it's your problem, and you might be on your own. It's unfortunate, but I have stories for days of what I experienced in that building. So let's discuss my first day in GRVC. They sent me to like one of the worst houses in the building, and when I walked in, I couldn't believe what I saw. I walked in, you kind of scan the room to see who's in there, see if you see any familiar faces, aka inmates or officers. When I walked in, I'm looking all around. This building now is designed with 2 tiers. So when you walk in, you're kind of like seeing 48 doors at once. So this facility is full of cells. As I'm walking, I gotta kind of act like, what's up? Like, I'm here, what happened? Not in too an aggressive way, but I have to make it known that I'm not scared and I'm not nervous, even though I'm from another jail. Ironically, there was an inmate that was in the facility that knew who I was and knew that I was a good officer, not good in the scamming, bringing in drugs kind of way, but good as I get the job done and I do what I'm supposed to do, and their services will be rendered, their mail will be delivered within my power. As I'm walking around, I didn't notice the person at first, but I'm going through, they speak to me, I speak to them, and we kept it moving. I made my tour all around, which is called a security inspection. I made it all the way around the entire facility, and I sat down in my chair. Each facility should have a table or a desk and a chair, which is probably bolted to the ground so that it doesn't go flying around the room. But in that particular facility, then I sat down on a bench. The inmate that noticed me from a previous jail or previous sentence that he was like, I just wanted to make sure that you were still the same person, because I can't say that you're good and then you come in here on different timing and everything's all over. So I wanted to make sure that you were still the same person that you were in the other facility. Basically, we discussed, like, I'm always going to be the same. I'm always going to do my job no matter what. And I prided myself on that. Being a good officer, trying to be on time all the time, and dedicating as much time to my job as I could. But on the flip side, that affected my family. I missed a lot of birthdays, anniversaries, parties, time with my son, because I was trying to make the best of my career that was supposed to make everything great in life. Money doesn't always equal happiness, but sometimes you can use money to create happiness and more memories. It all depends on how you look at it. But being there, I realized what mattered, and I needed to be with my family, so this is my story. So luckily for me, that first day, I won't say it was a breeze, but in jail, it was a breeze. So everything was cool. They knew who I was. They could kind of trust me, but they still trying to figure it out. And if you know, when you're in jail, they're always going to try you. You'll learn in the academy, you're no one special. If you think you're beautiful outside, you're like, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're a million in jail. Because if you're in a male facility, obviously the only females that they interact with will be people that are officers, are doctors, counselors, any type of position that works in the jail. They're not going to be mixed with any other type of female. So you're somebody that they haven't seen in months, even years. There's been incidents where I was with inmates, they were asking me about the weather outside, asking me the new trends, new clothing, what new phones were out. They're so detached from the world. And when you are working there, you may or may not be engulfed into that lifestyle as well. It depends on how strong you are, your willpower, your family support outside of work. How do you balance work and relaxation? It's not easy. Your diet is off, you're not sleeping well, you're tired, you might be gaining weight, you might be losing weight from stress. It's not what people think. It is a good job, but at the same time, what are you willing to sacrifice? And it's nothing against anybody that decides to stay in the fight and do what they have to do for their families. I decided to do what I did by leaving, but I have way more stories. So let's get into it. So let me tell you about this one dark, gloomy day in GRVC. I come in, I was a midnight officer. Midnight officers, we had our own little bond. Like, if you were midnight, you just held each other down. Whether it was bringing snacks, water, lunch for the next day, we just try to help each other out, because that tour, you worked all the tours. You worked your midnight, which was 11 to 7, or it could have been from 5 to 1 or 6 to 2, any of the morning tours, I believe. But I was 11 to 7. So I would work 11 to 7, 7 to 3, and then 3 to 6:30 some days. No lie. I spent the night in my car, in the locker, anywhere you can to find some sleep, you will find it. So this particular day, I end up coming in on a midnight, probably from overtime the day before, who knows. I end up coming in to relieve the officer. When you come in, you're supposed to do a little check, speak to the officer, get the temperature of the room, see how everything is, were there any fights, were there any issues, were there any stabbings, slashings, are the doors locked. You do a security inspection, make sure there's nobody in each other's cell. There's so many things that you need to do when you first come in, but depending on how tired, how long of a day that officer may or may not have had, you might not get all the information that you need. You might get the keys on the table, you might get, oh, okay, everything was good, and then when you get in there, you get what they call a bag. So I'm walking in, I have this feeling that comes over me like something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong, but I could just feel that there's a difference in here. So I'm like, everything's all right? Yeah, everything's okay. I'm like, you sure? Yeah, everything's good. Why you ask? Because I'm relieving you and it feels like something's wrong. So before I even get to do my security inspection, I'm waiting for the officer to complete his last inspection before he gets relieved. As he's walking around, we call it popping out. They busting the door open like, yo, what up? Who's coming? Who's relieving you? Oh, Miss T, that's you? And I'm like, hey. So I already feel something's not right, but I can't pinpoint it. I don't see anybody. I can't really figure out the situation. So now I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, I'm waiting for him to do his tour so then I can do mine. Sometimes it depends on who you are and how you work with the next person. You might do the security inspection together to make sure everything's good. You know, that shows that you really care. You're making sure that you're not leaving any bags for the officer that's coming in. As he's touring around, an inmate busts out the door, bloody, and almost falls off the second tier. This was crazy. Blood all over him. He's hanging on the railing. Everybody's pulling him back. Inmates that are popping out, the officer, and I'm trying to figure out what's next. I'm telling the officers that are inside the office, which we call the bubble, listen, you got to call the front. He has to get medical attention. I let the officers know in the front, in the control room, where they know where everything's happening in the jail. They can see everything, and they know where everybody is in the jail. They work in the control room. It's pretty much a sweet spot. Everybody doesn't need to work in the control room. So if you know, you know. We end up calling, letting them know, listen, I'm not going to take this post. Do you see what's going on in here? If I take on anything and I don't know what's going on, that's all on me. And you can get sued by an inmate's family, individual's family. You can get sued by the department or not indemnified, which is them backing you if something went wrong and they find that you didn't completely do everything you were supposed to do, which is completely understandable. You don't do everything that you're supposed to do, but sometimes it's inevitable. Like, there's so much going on simultaneously, you can't control what's happening. So I let them know, I didn't assume the post, I didn't take the equipment, I'm not taking this post. Do you see what's going on? Instead of me taking the post, I ended up having to escort the inmate on a hospital run. So hospital run is you are outside of the facility with your uniform on, with a firearm, escorting that individual either to another facility. You don't take the firearm to another facility, but you will, if you're going to a hospital, you will have a firearm because you have this individual in custody outside of the grounds that they're supposed to be on. So although we have prison wards where there's officers at that particular hospital that coordinate everything that's going on, you're still in the public. The bed next to you, the people next to you, they all see your uniform, they all see your firearm, and you just never know what could happen. Somebody might not like the police or think that you're an officer of NYPD, or they just don't like any type of officer in blue. It doesn't matter where you're from. So you have to deal with the public as well as the inmate trying to escape. So it's never easy on a hospital run. At times it might not be as bad as others depending on the condition of the individual, but you can never guess how it's going to be. And above all that, you might spend who knows how long. The short staff, the hospital staff not getting to your individual in a timely fashion, they might put them in the back burner because they're handcuffed to the bed. So until the doctors are available or done dealing with whatever else they're dealing with, you may or may not be there for some time. So that's when the issues arise. They're in the hospital, they want to use the phone, and in the academy and through different training lessons, you will learn, and there's a famous story, I'm not going to mention the officer's name, but there's a famous story that they had, an inmate was in a hospital. He ended up having a family member or himself, he had a family member come to the hospital, plant a firearm in the bathroom, and if the officer did not properly check that area, and unfortunately it was his demise. So it's very important for you to understand that this is life and death. Although you may think, okay, every day you go to work and things don't happen, the ability for things to go wrong and to go left happens within seconds. Just like outside, you never know how your day is going to turn out. But in jail, there's weapons, there's drugs, there's all types of things going on. So that was one of the scariest moments that I've had.
Stack it tall, stack it tall, stack it tall, I stack it tall. Mama told me stack it tall, y'all can't catch me if I fall. These hoes know I'm a dog, I'ma flow with all of y'all. Stack it tall, stack it tall, stack it tall, I stack it tall. I only wear design, looking for these hard to find. They don't wanna see you shine, I hear that all the time. Looking for these, you can't find them. Put my girl in Ferragamo, now we cuffin' sorta kinda. Don Corleone, yeah, rockin' every loan. Neiman Marcus, Smith, where I live, take me home, yeah. Go yard junkie, bathing name monkey, Gucci garden, growing money. Young nigga, only 20. You can't have me, you ain't want me. I only want your bunchy. I go shopping, go retarded. Meet me at Neiman Marcus. She just wants some Molly. She just wanna party. Give her this and let her pop it. Give her this and let her top, yeah. And I won't call her, I gotta stack it taller. I stack it tall, I stack it tall. I only want designer shoes. Cheetah print, Jimmy Choo. I only want designer things. Only sleep on California King, yeah, yeah. Stack it tall, stack it tall, stack it tall, I stack it tall. Mama told me stack it tall, y'all can't catch me if I fall. These hoes know I'm a dog, I'ma flow with all of y'all. Stack it tall, stack it tall, stack it tall, I stack it tall. I only wear design, looking for these hard to find. They don't wanna see you shine, I hear that all the time, yeah. Stack it tall.
We are at Rikers Island. Came out here to get some real footage so you can see how it was to be here, the anxiety you feel over the bridge. When you get over here, you just know that you don't know what type of day you're gonna have. So right when you get to this corner, you just start to feel like, you start praying, start figuring out what you're gonna do for the day. Hopefully they don't switch where you're gonna be working, that you don't get into a fight, you don't break a bone, you don't get stabbed, you don't get hurt. It's crazy. So to be here today and not have to work here feels so different, but I still sort of get the same anxiety that I got when I used to have to be here for over 20 hours, 24 hours a day. It's kind of a surreal feeling, like to be back here reporting about what I went through is so much different than actually having to go to work and putting a uniform on, but in some ways it's still the same. I spent over 5 years working here as an officer. I worked at EMTC, I worked at GRPC, but I made a world tour, which is you going from different facilities, working, doing different tasks. Sometimes I was on hospital runs, which I would have to go to the prison wards, or I would be working in another facility, bringing one inmate to another area to make sure that they get the services that they need. Being out here, you get flashbacks of all the times that you had a really long day, over 24 hours on a post, no sleep, maybe even no food, no time to call your family, not being able to know what's going on with the outside world. You're cut off from all communication because you're just trying to get this money. And yeah, it's good, you're able to buy material things and you're able to spoil your family and your children, but the time that you lose, you have to figure out whether or not it's worth it. You know, you're spending all this time here. I slept in my car, I slept in the locker room, you have to take a shower in jail and you're not an inmate. It's like just overall the whole feeling of everything. It's just something that you can't imagine. If you've never been here, you've never worked here, you're not gonna know how it feels. Even if I describe it and show you pictures, it's just a feeling that comes over you. Even standing right here right now, it's like passing by people I used to work with, just seeing different people driving by, people going into their shift, and just when you hear the words "have a safe tour," it means so much more because you really don't know if you're gonna be safe. Like the fact that there's people with weapons, there's people that are under the influence of homemade drugs and homemade alcohol, and they can inflict any type of pain on you for whatever they've been going through in their life. So standing here right now recording and having all these people pass by and look at you to see what you're talking about is like, it just feels so crazy. Right here when you get to the corner of 19th Avenue and Hazen Street, all of the jails on Riker Island have an address for Hazen Street. You take this road, you have to go through multiple security checks, you have to put your ID, you have to show them your pass. When you get into the building, you have to take all of your metal off. Anything that will go off in the metal detectors, you have to take that off and make sure that you go through the metal detector properly. You go to the locker room, lugging all your stuff, depending whether or not you know what type of day you're gonna have. You might have to pack so much food for like 2 days because you don't know when you're gonna go home. But you'll have your locker room, which is a small little locker that you have to put basically your whole life in. You need your toiletries, you need your extra uniforms, you need extra boots, extra socks, and you need all those extra things because somebody might forget something. Maybe they had a long day the night before and they had a lot going on, and now that they may need something, you can be that helping hand to get them through the rest of the day. Even a white t-shirt is a high commodity because that's what you wear, especially in the hot summers, like how it is about to be the summertime right now. You're sweating your behinds off, it's hot, the inmates are fighting over the fans. A fan is something that is like lethal. A whole war can start because the fans are not on, the fans are not working in a house. Everybody's irritable, everybody's hot, everybody's sweating, so it's a big deal. So being in a house that does not have an operable fan is an issue, and you're trying to work with someone else to try to get that fan, and you don't know when you're gonna get it. So you might have a war to deal with on your hands. It's just crazy. The littlest things that we take for granted, being free, you would never think would be an issue. Chicken, bread, muffins on Sundays, like things that they're holding dear to their heart because they are not able to just go to the store like we can. They're not able to just go out and do whatever they want like we can. So those things are almost like a luxury. So if you get a couple more muffins than somebody else, it's such a big deal. Literally for every part of their day. Aside from your cell area having a bathroom, you have to wait for somebody to give you a toothbrush, you have to wait for someone to give you toothpaste, you have to wait for someone to escort you to lunch or to bring your breakfast, lunch, and dinner to the area that you're in. Depending on where you are, somebody has to unlock the tray, put the food in and lock it before they open the slot to give it to you, because at the same time, while we're trying to feed you, you might be trying to throw feces on us. So every day could be a challenge depending on where you are, where you're working, the severity of the situation. You might walk into a situation where somebody is going to be trying to hurt you, or you might get somebody else's issue. Somebody was supposed to come to work and you really weren't supposed to be there, but they continue with their plan to either start a fire, to throw whatever they want on you, whether it's urine or feces, if they want to throw food in your face or spit on you. It all depends. It doesn't matter all the time that you're a nice officer, that you always do your job all the time, because if they want to get whatever they want to get done, they're going to do it. So I will talk about the experience that I had with supervisors. Working in the facility, overall, you kind of have to it's either you fight or flight. That's just what it is. There's some people that take the opportunity to think that they can control you because they're in a certain position. So sometimes these positions get to these officers' heads. Like if you were just regular officer and now you become a captain or you become a warden, and it's great. Like I'm happy for anybody that has made significant achievements throughout their professional career, but I've been in situations where people were taking it too far. Like if they're trying to give you instructions, they're yelling, they're talking crazy, they're trying to pick your looks apart, your outfit apart. That has nothing to do with the job. So even being on the job and you think that everybody's here for the same goal, everybody's here to make money, everybody's here to do what they're supposed to do, but in between that, because you're so far away from home, your personal life gets intertwined with your business, how you feel about certain things, the way that you interact with others, the way that you manage others. There's so many different things that come into play when you're in the facility that honestly may not even have anything to do with you directly. It might just have something to do with what they have going on at home, but because they spend so much time here, they have to deal with it. Thank you again for watching. This series is all about faith, family, and business, and this is from Cells to Shows that we have on my time on Rikers Island on From Cells to Shows with Trinity.